Good morning, dear students. Let us continue the second part of the lecture of larynx. In the first part, we discussed introduction to the larynx, the functions of the larynx, and the various cartilages of the larynx. Today, we shall study the intrinsic membranes of the larynx, the inlet of the larynx, and muscles of the larynx. Now, let us begin with the intrinsic membrane. The intrinsic membranes are two in number. They connect the cartilages of larynx to each other. Okay. So these intrinsic membranes are fibroelastic membranes. They are internally lined by mucosa of the larynx. Okay. They are internally lined by mucosa of the larynx. So there is a quadrangular membrane, number one. This is quadrate membrane or the quadrangular membrane. In the upper part, it stretches between the thyroid angle and epiglottis and arytenoid cartilages. So the quadrangular membrane in the upper part, it stretches between the arytenoid, the epiglottis, and thyroid angle. Between these three, you have the so-called quadrangular membrane. The free upper margin, so this quadrangular membrane has free upper margin, which lies in the aryepiglottic fold. So what is aryepiglottic fold? I can show you here. This is aryepiglottic fold. So upper free margin of the quadrangular membrane, it lies in the aryepiglottic fold. And it has free lower margin, which forms vestibular fold. Upper free margin lies in the aryepiglottic fold, and lower free margin forms the vestibular fold. Okay, the vestibular fold is the location of vestibular fold in this section. Then there is another membrane which is known as the cricovocal membrane. Cricovocal membrane. So this cricovocal membrane has got free upper margin which extends from the arytenoid to the thyroid angle. The thyroid angle. Okay. So this is also known as the thyroid, also known as vocal ligament. Cricovocal membrane, also known as the vocal ligament, which extends from arytenoid to the thyroid angle or thyroid cartilage, which is known as the vocal ligament. So that is about cricovocal membrane. Okay. Then let us discuss about the laryngeal cavity, the inlet of the larynx. The laryngeal cavity, it extends from laryngeal inlet to the lower margin of the cricoid cartilage. That is up to here, up to the cricoid cartilage, lower border of the cricoid cartilage, you have extension of the inlet of the larynx. Okay. So you should know what are the boundaries of the inlet of the larynx. So inlet of the larynx, anteriorly it is bounded by upper margin of the epiglottis. Anteriorly, the inlet of the larynx is bounded by upper margin of the epiglottis. On each side by aryepiglottic fold. So these two are the aryepiglottic fold. So this is the laryngeal inlet. On each side it is bounded by aryepiglottic fold, and anteriorly by the upper free margin of the epiglottis, and below it is bounded by interarytenoid mucosal fold. That is between the two arytenoid cartilages, there is mucosal fold, that is interarytenoid mucosal fold. So the interior of the larynx, it is lined by mucosa above the level of the vocal folds, that is respiratory mucosa we say. So these are the vocal folds. Above this we have mucosa, that is respiratory mucosa. Below it is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, that is below the vocal folds. So now the laryngeal cavity, it is subdivided into three parts by means of two mucosal folds. They are the vestibular fold, as you can see in this diagram, and vocal fold below vocal fold and above vestibular fold. So by means of these two mucosal folds, the inlet of the larynx is divided into three parts. The vestibular folds, they are known as false vocal cords. Okay, vestibular folds are known as false vocal cords, whereas vocal folds are known as true vocal cords. This you have to remember. Vestibular folds are known as false vocal cords, whereas vocal folds are known as true vocal cords. So these two folds, they subdivide the laryngeal cavity into three parts. Part above the vestibular fold is known as vestibule or the supraglottic part. Part above the vestibular fold of the larynx is known as vestibule or the supraglottic part. Part between the vestibular and the vocal fold is known as ventricle or the sinus of the larynx. Okay, ventricle or sinus of the larynx. And there is a mucosal diverticulum called saccule. There is a mucosal diverticulum, as you can see here. This is the saccule. Extends as a lateral side of the vestibular fold. So this is vestibular fold. The lateral aspect of the vestibular fold, there is a mucosal diverticulum. This is known as saccule. So it extends on the lateral side of the vestibular fold, and this mucosal fold contains some glands. These glands, they secrete some oily secretions. They secrete some oily secretions which lubricates the vocal folds. Okay, they lubricate the vocal folds continuously. Okay, so that is the significance of this saccule. Okay, or the ventricle of the larynx, which is present in between the vestibular fold and the vocal fold. Now, below the vocal fold, there is a narrow part known as infraglottic part. So this is infraglottic part. Okay, below the vocal folds. So these are the three parts of the inlet of the larynx: supraglottic part, sinus or the ventricle of the larynx, infraglottic part. Now coming to the vestibular fold, they are covered with loose respiratory mucosa. You can see here, this is vestibular folds. Vestibular fold, as you can see here, they are covered with loose respiratory mucosa. And what does the fold contain? What are the structures inside the fold? So structures inside the vestibular fold are vestibular ligament, capillaries, and submucous connective tissue. Okay, that you should remember. These are the contents of the vestibular fold. Then, because of the presence of the capillaries in the vestibular fold, in laryngoscopic examination, if you look at the vestibular fold, they appear pink in color. Okay, the vestibular folds, they appear pink in color. Now, the vocal folds are tightly covered with stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Okay, vocal folds are covered with stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, whereas the vestibular folds, they are covered with loose respiratory mucosa. Now, contents of the vocal folds are the vocal ligament and vocalis muscle. These are the contents of the vocal fold. So there are no capillaries and no submucous connective tissue in the vocal fold. Okay, or you can say submucous stroma in the vocal fold. So there is no there are no capillaries and connective tissue in the vocal fold. So that is about the vestibular fold and the vocal fold. Vocal fold comes as very short notes, very important. So you have to write down what it is covered by what and what are its contents. Okay. Now what is rima glottis or rima glottidis? Rima glottis we have to know because it is the narrowest part of the laryngeal cavity. It's the narrowest part of the laryngeal cavity. So here you have to remember the clinical question with which we have started our lecture. Name the narrowest part of the larynx. Okay, you will get the answer. So rima glottis we have to know because it is narrowest part of the laryngeal cavity. It is a space bounded by vocal folds. Rima glottis is a space bounded by vocal folds and the vocal process of arytenoid and basis of the arytenoid cartilage. Okay. I repeat, rima glottis is a space bounded by vocal folds and vocal process of the arytenoid and basis of the arytenoid cartilage. The anterior limit of this space is the thyroid angle. Okay, thyroid angle, and posterior limit is interarytenoid mucosal fold that we have seen in the previous slide. The anterior limit you can see here. So let me tell you what is this is about rima glottis, the space between two vocal folds. Okay, the space between the vestibular fold is known as rima vestibuli. So this is rima vestibuli, the space between the vestibular folds. The space between the vocal folds is rima glottis. Let us look at the boundaries of the rima glottis. So rima, I told you that is a space between the two vocal folds. Okay. So anterior limit of this rima glottis is the thyroid angle. You can see here in this diagram, the thyroid angle, and posterior limit is by the interarytenoid fold. Okay, this diagram is very important. So there are two parts of rima glottis. So that is anterior 3/5 intermembranous part. Anterior 3/5 is intermembranous part. So that is up to here. Then posterior 2/5 is intercartilaginous part. That is between the two cartilages of the arytenoid cartilages. Space shape, the shape of the larynx undergo changes during respiration and phonation. Okay, so rima continuously changes its shape because the vocal folds continuously move even during quiet respiration. So changes of in the shape of the rima glottis during quiet respiration, intermembranous part is triangular and intercartilaginous part is quadrangular. We can see here in quiet respiration, the intermembranous part is triangular, whereas intercartilaginous part is quadrangular. Number one, this is all. Number two, in preparation of phonation of rima, that is when you are about to speak. So rima appears as a small chink due to the adduction of vocal cords and cartilages. Okay, that means it is very narrow and adduction of two vocal cords and cartilages. So this is during in the preparation of phonation. Okay, when you are about to speak, the shape of the rima appears like this. Okay, it becomes very narrow, both the intermembranous and intercartilaginous part. Then in whispering, the intermembranous part narrowed, but the intercartilaginous part remains widely open. So this is in whispering condition. This is in whispering, rima glottis, the intermembranous part becomes narrow, whereas intercartilaginous part remains wider. So this is in quiet respiration, this part, and this is when you are about to speak, phonation, and this is during in whispering. And the last one, in forced inspiration, the vocal cords are widely abducted and the rima assumes rhomboid or diamond shape. But in forced inspiration, you see the shape of the rima is like this. Okay. The vocal cords are widely abducted and rima assumes the rhomboid or diamond shape. So these are the various shapes of the rima glottis. So you should know what is rima glottis and what are its boundaries and what are the different shapes of rima glottis in different conditions. Okay, and this diagram is very, very important. Now coming to the sensory nerve supply. The vocal folds are the watershed areas. Okay, that means what is above the vocal folds and what is below the vocal folds? The mucosa. The mucosa above the vocal folds is supplied by internal laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of superior laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of vagus. Okay. So mucosa above the vocal folds is supplied by internal laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of superior laryngeal nerve, which in turn is a branch of the vagus. So internal laryngeal nerve pierces thyrohyoid membrane and reaches the larynx via the pyriform fossa. So this internal laryngeal nerve and its way through the pyriform fossa is in danger of the injury. Okay. If in the food particles, sometimes like fish bone gets stuck in pyriform fossa, what happens if the food particle, something like fish bone, got stuck in the pyriform fossa? Internal laryngeal nerve is likely to be injured, and the injury of the internal laryngeal nerve, the mucosa, you see the sensitivity of the upper laryngeal mucosa. Okay, and sensitivity of the upper part of the laryngeal mucosa is lost, and then it tends to be more prone to entry of foreign bodies. So this gives rise to tendency for entry of foreign body because the reflex cuff is lost. The reflex cuff is lost, like in the form of cuffing out the foreign body is lost. That is what it means. That is damage to the internal laryngeal nerve. The next, coming to the mucosa below the vocal folds, it is supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. The arterial supply is inferior thyroid artery. Lymphatics drain into pre-laryngeal and pretracheal nodes. So here, above the vocal folds, the arterial supplies superior laryngeal artery. So lymphatics drain into deep cervical nodes, whereas below the vocal folds, the arterial supplies, that is the inferior thyroid artery, and lymphatics drain into pre-laryngeal and pretracheal nodes. This is blood supply and nerve supply of the vocal folds. This we have discussed. Lymphatic drainage of the vocal folds. Above the vocal folds, lymphatic drainage to deep cervical nodes. Below the vocal folds, lymphatics drainage to pre-laryngeal nodes. The most important point of the laryngeal anatomy is the intrinsic RX and muscles of the larynx, basically. Okay, we have extrinsic muscles of larynx, elevators. Primary, we have stylopharyngeus, palatopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus, thyrohyoid. Secondary elevators of the larynx, we have mylohyoid, genohyoid, stylohyoid, digastric. Depressors, we have sternohyoid, sternothyroid, and omohyoid. So among in the larynx, mainly the intrinsic muscles are important. Extrinsic muscles, they will ask you names only, okay? This is of least important. Musculature of the larynx, intrinsic muscles of the larynx. Controlling the laryngeal inlet, muscles controlling the laryngeal inlet, we have oblique arytenoid, transverse arytenoid, thyroepiglottic. Then muscles controlling the movements of the vocal cords, right? Which controls the opening, we have abductor. That is, abductor of the vocal cords is posterior cricoarytenoid, and adductor is lateral cricoarytenoid. And muscles which control the length of the this one larynx, that is thyroarytenoid, it shortens, and cricothyroid, it lengthens. Muscles which adduct and abduct the vocal cords. We have posterior cricoarytenoid and lateral cricoarytenoid and transverse cricoarytenoid. So lateral cricoarytenoid, posterior cricoarytenoid, and transverse arytenoid, these are the muscles responsible for the adduction and abduction of the vocal cords. Muscles which open the laryngeal inlet are close the laryngeal inlet. We have aryepiglotticus and oblique arytenoid. Aryepiglotticus and oblique arytenoids. So we shall discuss the origin, insertion, nerve supply action of posterior cricoarytenoid muscle. Is the most important muscle, posterior cricoarytenoid. This is described as the safety muscle of the larynx. Posterior cricoarytenoid is described as the safety muscle of the larynx. Origin from the posterior surface of the lamina of the cricoid cartilage is the origin. Posterior surface of the lamina of the cricoid cartilage. Insertion, posterior surface of the muscular process of the arytenoid cartilage. So the name itself tells you that origin is from the cricoid cartilage and insertion into the arytenoid cartilage. Action, it is an abduction of the vocal cords by rotating the arytenoid laterally. Nerve supply of this muscle is recurrent laryngeal nerve. Recurrent laryngeal nerve. Then we have lateral cricoarytenoid. It takes origin from the arch of the cricoid cartilage, the lateral cricoarytenoid. Insertion on the anterior surface of the muscular process of the arytenoid cartilage. Action, it is opposite to the posterior cricoarytenoid. Okay, here the rotation of the arytenoid and its vocal process towards the medial side. Adduction of the vocal cords are bringing them together. Okay, that you should remember. Whereas posterior cricoarytenoid is responsible for the abduction of the vocal cords. I stress again, posterior cricoarytenoid is responsible for abduction of the vocal cords. Okay, by rotating the arytenoid laterally, whereas lateral cricoarytenoid is responsible for the adduction of the vocal cords. Okay, by rotating the arytenoid towards the medial side. Then we have Let us discuss about the cricothyroid muscle. This muscle has few unique features. As you can see here, this is cricothyroid. This is the only intrinsic muscle which is located on the external aspect of the larynx. Okay, it is the only muscle which is outside the larynx. And it is the only muscle which is supplied by external laryngeal nerve branch of superior laryngeal nerve. Whereas all other intrinsic muscles are supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. Origin of this cricothyroid from the arch of the cricoid cartilage inserted into the inferior margin or inferior horn of the thyroid cartilage. Action of this cricothyroid, it lengthens the vocal cords. Lengthens the vocal cords, also known as the tensor of vocal cords. So that is about the cricothyroid muscle. Discuss the posterior cricoarytenoid, lateral cricoarytenoid. We have discussed it helps in shortening, relaxation of vocal cords, adduction of the vocal cords. The thyroarytenoid. This muscle extends between the thyroid cartilage and arytenoid cartilage. That's why the name thyroarytenoid. Origin from the thyroid angle. Origin is from the thyroid angle from the internal side and is inserted into the anterolateral surface of the arytenoid cartilage. Like it's deeper fibers, thyroarytenoid muscle, it's deeper fibers. That means the fibers which are towards the midline have tiny slips which are attached to the vocal cords. And these small slips are also known as vocalis muscle. Okay, the fiber, deep fibers of the thyroarytenoid muscle, they are known as vocalis muscle. It is responsible for the modulation of the voice. Okay, action of the thyroarytenoid, it pulls the thyroid and arytenoid cartilage close to each other, thereby relaxing the vocal cords. So both the vocalis and thyroarytenoid are supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now coming to the transverse arytenoid. Here we have the transverse arytenoid muscle. It's a single or unpaired muscle. Its fibers pass from back of the arytenoid cartilage to the back of the other arytenoid. Okay. So action, it approximates the two arytenoid cartilages. That is adduction of posterior part of the remoglottis. Adduction of posterior part of the remoglottis. And nerve supply is it is a single muscle but supplied by both the recurrent laryngeal nerves. Then oblique arytenoid origin. Right oblique arytenoid originates from right arytenoid cartilage and inserted into the left inferior lateral border of the epiglottis. Okay, from here to left inferior lateral border of the epiglottis. So vice versa. Action reduces the opening of the larynx and depression of the epiglottis, and it brings the arytenoids closer. Nerve supply is by recurrent laryngeal nerve. Thyroepiglottic and araepiglottic muscle is made up of some fibers of thyroarytenoid muscle. These fibers enter the araepiglottic fold to reach the lateral margin of the epiglottis. Action, they pull the araepiglottic folds. You have already seen the araepiglottic fold. So they pull the araepiglottic folds away from each other in order to open the laryngeal inlet. So injury to the laryngeal nerves. Unilateral lesion of external laryngeal nerve. Leads to paralysis of cricothyroid muscle, because cricothyroid muscle, it is innervated by external laryngeal nerve. Results in temporary hoarseness and inability to raise the pitch of the voice. Then unilateral injury or compression of recurrent laryngeal nerve leads to hoarseness of the voice. The left recurrent laryngeal nerve may be compressed in the thorax by a large left atrium due to mitral stenosis or during surgery on patent ductus arteriosus. Bilateral injury to the recurrent laryngeal nerves leads to paralysis of adductors and abductors of the vocal cords. So the cords are motionless and assume the median or paramedian position, that is known as cadaveric position of the vocal cords. Cadaveric position of the vocal cords. The patient will experience dyspnea. Dyspnea is difficulty in breathing. So then there is inspiratory stridor. Inspiratory stridor, that is also because of the difficulty in breathing, and the patient will experience difficulty in speaking. So with this, we have finished the muscles of the larynx, the laryngeal inlet, and the cartilages of the larynx, okay, and the intrinsic membranes of the larynx. So this is a very, very important topic from examination point of view. Larynx itself, the complete larynx is very, very important, okay. The cartilages are important, and the intrinsic membranes and the muscles of the larynx are important, okay, and the rima glottis, the various shapes of the rima glottis are very, very important, okay. So I shall discuss about pyriform fossa in the next class. Sometimes comes as very short notes in the exam. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any clarifications, you can text me.